right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AuthorTube Writing. Uh, Goodness. AuthorTube Writing Conference. Hello, hello. My thing just popped up and it distracted me for just a second. I was like, whoop, but everything is good. Um, Thank you guys for coming to our world building and story Bible help session. I've got a lovely panel with me. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves, and then I will let you know who I am. We're going to go ahead and start with Mama Maggie. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Hello, lovelies. MamaMMWard, independent author, stroke survivor, migraine sufferer. I write books, sci-fi fantasies, really big worlds. I love world building. I really, really do. And so when Nia asked me to be part of this, I was like, sure, because I'm kind of the planter gardener in the room. I like to write, like just pants right, but I need structure. So I like to plan my garden before I start throwing all the seeds everywhere.
And Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Tiffany TL Russ Lifestyle. I write under both the pen name TL Russ and Desleray, and I like to write sassy women and cinnamon roll alphas that you just want to love and hold. I don't have books. I wish I did. All of mine are digital, but I too absolutely love world building. I love building different places that you can kind of escape to and enjoy, and characters that you have fun with when you get to meet them along the way.
And I am Nia the Vixen of Fiction all over the internet. You are on my channel, and I am a huge world builder. I love creating story Bibles. I'm that person where the world building and the story Bible creation is a little bit more fun sometimes than writing the story. So if you're like me, hopefully we can have some tips to help you roll it back and actually get that story written. And I have a pantser daughter who flies by the seat of her pants the whole way through. And then she's like, what do I do with all this? And so I have been able to help her get her stories whittled down and put into world building and story Bible form so that she can keep things straight. So hopefully, if you are a pantser, you don't like to do world building, no idea about a story Bible or a story wiki, hopefully we'll be able to help you out too. So we're all in some range of the world build, love to world build, plot it or pants it realm. I am a heavy plotter, but I tend to plant a lot because I need to write and world build all kind of like together. It makes sense to me when I do it that way. Um, so if really quick, if you have any questions, please make sure you mark it with a Q or question first. That way I can mark those. If it's relevant to the topic that we're talking about at the moment, then I will go ahead and put that question there. Otherwise, we will have a Q&A at the end. So we'll try to make sure we get to everybody's questions. So don't feel like if I don't address your question right at that moment, we will get to it during the Q&A.
So there was already one question I saw somewhere in there. I don't remember. It was a while back.
A while back. Okay, I'm going to make sure I go ahead and
let me see if I can. At 7:01.
All right, perfect. All right, so well, let's talk about a little bit about how we start. Where do you start in your story writing process, and then is that with the world building? Is that with the story Bible, or is it just I've got a couple characters? Where do you start, and how do you get that into your world building? And we'll start with Mama Maggie.
I'll get a scene in my head, and that's where I start. But then before I do anything else, I world build around that. Because I learned this thing called the writing the tree method, where every scene is just a leaf on a tree, and your world is the trunk of your tree. So I have to write the characters are the branches, the leaves of the scene, and the world build is the trunk. And I'm one of these writers that I literally have to make myself stop world building to start writing, because like with my big series, my Relic of Time Wars time travel series, my world building document, story Bible, just for that world is 50,000 words. So yeah, I way.
Oh, you fuzzed out, Mama Maggie.
Okay, that wasn't just me. Okay.
I do way too much world building.
Okay.
Okay, all right. And how about you, Tiffany? Where do you begin?
Well, Nia knows because we've talked about this on our podcast that we do, Small Town World. Mine always starts pretty much with a character. I like that's always my intro into the world, and then my world building goes similar, kind of almost to Mama Maggie's. Is that I'm like, where would they work? Where do they get their coffee? Like, who are their siblings? Where are their siblings at? Who do they interact with? Do they have a best friend? Where does the best friend live? And like that. And I kind of build it around the characters that are going to be placed in there. Sometimes I will, like, for example, I was just in Colorado and we went to a small mountain town, and I just looked at it. I was like, this would make something really fun. And so I just started building a whole world with that. And then kind of maybe drop some people in there along with it. I kind of knew the people a little bit because I knew the story structures that I wanted to build or the story that I wanted to tell. And that was like, this would be kind of the ideal place. But there were some things that normally I would have maybe not thought of off the top of my head, but because I was there and I was able to see, you know, like their winery or the arcade building or certain things that they have, that gave me a little bit more ideas of things that I might want in this town that I built.
Yeah. And I kind of start with sort of a premise more than characters, kind of the world, a little bit the characters, but mostly it's very similar to Mama Maggie, where I have a premise. It's something like an idea. What if XYZ were to happen? In what kind of world would that happen in? And who would be affected by it? So then I literally will the story starts developing for me that way. I wish I was more character driven early on. That character is something that I'm working on, but really fleshing out the world a little bit is something that I enjoy so much that it's the easier and more fun avenue for me to branch off into. And in that, as I'm developing the world, the stories almost too rapidly begin to come to me. And if I'm writing a series, I literally have to decide, okay, I can only have X number of characters or X number of main characters if I've got a group of found family that are going to be going on this adventure together. You know, I really have to limit it because I can almost see how my world will affect so many different types of people. How would it affect a young person? How would it affect someone who's elderly? But I'm like, I've got to narrow it down. And the story is only going to be about X, Y, and Z people. It's not going to be necessarily telling a story about everyone. But I do start somewhere in the middle, and then I go into the macro if it's fantasy, high fantasy, or sci-fi, because I feel like I need to know the world that the people are living in to know how they're being affected by the thing that's going on, versus the other way around where you start down at the macro and then I start at the micro, where we're tangibly in the world, the village, the town, in the person's house when whatever the thing is that's going to be happening. I kind of need to know what's going on the outside, in order to get started. Unless it's super, super contemporary, but I don't write a whole lot of straightforward contemporary. Um, and the only thing that I do that's really contemporary would be my romances, but even then, I created the whole world. So the town, I create the entire town, all the shopping centers, the stores, all the people, the winery. So again, it's the fun part for me. It might not be the fun part for everybody. So if it's not the fun part for you, hopefully we can get it to where you can get it a little bit more manageable. And I'm going to check really quick. I need to keep an eye on the chat. Make sure. Remember,
We've
if
got
you
a couple
have
of questions.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to miss the questions while
I put the
while
timestamps in the private chat.
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, the thing with world building is as authors we want this grand world, but especially for fantasy, sci-fi, and sci-fan, we don't need to put the whole world in there. And that's my struggle. That's why I have a 50,000 Word document that is literally Microsoft Word, 50,000 words, pages and pages and pages of world building. It's because I love world building. I love going, like knowing where things are, and it's like there have been a few things because this is time travel, so I have to I had to have the whole series written before I started publishing, because I don't have the luxury of being able to go back and just go, oh yeah, this was in, having pop-up technology or pop-up person, people. It has to be like one big thing. So I have to have that structure, the already structured role build, and I've put days down rabbit holes on just like each little part, like the humans end up leaving my Earth equivalent and going to live on these colony planets that are given to them by the Etherians, and so then I have to have different biomes for each of them, different animals. And one of the thread that runs through the whole story that's actually quite hysterical to me is that after Earth is destroyed, they can't find a place to grow coffee or chocolate. And the female main carrier is addicted to those things. She's addicted to those things, and it's literally, she's like, I'm gonna die. I might as well just die before the war is over, because
Yep. So yeah, on the topic of things to include. So Tiffany, when you do a lot of things that are in our actual world, like Earth, that looks like us, but you also do paranormal as well. So what do you decide needs to be included in the world building? Do you make up your own small town or city or whatever for your paranormal as well?
For the most part, yes. Sometimes I will use like one of the stories that I'm working at now, there's the town, but the people keep referencing, oh, it's only like so far from Shreveport, Louisiana. So like I will use like real places to kind of set it. Or like my Peach Ridge series is right next to an actual state park in Georgia. So I will do that to kind of give it grounding, if you will. But for the most part, I do tend to build my own cities or my own towns, or like sections of a city, like maybe it's like a specific area, but it's in Chicago or something like that. So it's still in the city, but I control like kind of the things that are in there. And as far as like trying to figure out what to include and what not to include, I normally try to limit what I'm including to what's interacts with the character. Like in the story, because I write short, so I have a limited amount of space. So I can't, like, I wanna, and sometimes I do, but I have to keep it pretty short. So like if it's not involved in whatever's going to be in the series or the story or the character, I sometimes have to like set it aside, or just know it in the back of my head and be like, okay, well, that'll live there until the next series. And then maybe it gets to go in or something like that. Because when you only have like 20K,
Yeah.
You got to be.
I don't have that problem. Mine are all like, my whole series is like 1.5 million words now. So the books are about 100,000 each.
Yeah,
so I can do
so much with that.
I do. I use all the words. Yes, they're all my words, and I'm using them all.
I could do so much with that.
Yes, and I do both of these. So Tiffany has seen my story Bible for my sci-fi, and I believe the story Bible itself has about 100,000 words, but that is because I have for every alien species that I've created, I kind of recreated a mini world Bible for each species and their planet, and little things about their biome, the things that they eat, their physiology, um, all of those things have been created. And I even with that, I did have to stop myself because even I said it is a comic, so you will see all of these alien species throughout, but some of them I had to say, okay, we're not going to get into any detail with the species, so we're just going to name them. We're going to say what they look like because I have to draw them. So we're going to name them, say what they look like, and maybe a little bit about how they might interact. So when someone interacts with them on the spaceship, I'm not like, how do they, I can look and I've got a reference. Okay, I said that they speak like this, and they need the translator. They use their hands or they're very stiff. So that way I'm just consistent. So sometimes it's just a little note, but any alien species that have really affect the story or their story is affected by where they come from, I just needed to know all the details. And I do run into sometimes at some point I've got to stop, but it's also that many words because I also drew the layout for the spaceship, and you know what I mean? So all of this is in my World Bible, and I have it in a document, and it's just a really long document, but it's my reference. It's my reference so that as I'm writing each little piece of the comic, I can go back and I've got this information there. But then I have to write their story. So if I'm doing a story that has to do with X, Y, or Z alien, I know I have all my references, but I can go ahead and write the story. And then I can go back and fix anything that, okay, that they can't do that. I've already said that they can't do that. I've written another alien in the previous episode where they can't do that. So, it just makes fixing things a little bit easier.
My
It helps in order. Mm-hmm.
My Peach Ridge is very similar to that because Peach Ridge also was a little bit based on a real town. And so I was like, oh, I want to do this series in it, or this series, or this series. And I knew things were coming. So there's a lot of places I know that I have, like,
Mm-hmm.
in my world building document that maybe I haven't referenced in the stories, but I'm like, I want to get to you, and I want to get to you, and I want to get to you.
One day.
Yeah.
And the fun thing is you don't need all that for now. And so because you don't need it, if that's not your avenue, you don't need to write all that stuff.
Yeah.
For someone who finds this fun and enjoyable and it's part of the fun part of the writing, it actually helps us move along. If this is not the fun part, you just want to write that story, what I say, write that story. You can retroactively world build, and a lot of people kind of have to do that. If you're pantsing something that is sci-fi or fantasy, bless you, I don't know how you do it, but yay. But you can go back and that first book, before you publish it, go through it and pick out the parts that need to be part of your world building and what needs to go in your story Bible. And in my story Bible, it's everything. It's the characters. It's not just the world building, but it's all of the characters, and it's the things that happen in the story, because now the things that happen in the story become part of that story's history. That becomes part of that world's history. So all of that goes into the story Bible. It's like a Wikipedia for your story's world. So it goes in there. You can reference it. Use that first book, hopefully, fingers crossed, before you published it. If it's after you published it, you might find that I'm stuck with something that maybe I wish I could change. You can change that. There's ways around that. But preferably if you've got a big epic series that you want to write and you've already got the first book written, I would recommend that's a good time to before you publish it, go through and get that story Bible, get your world building worked out. Use your book. You wrote this baby. It's yours. Use that as your reference and go ahead and go through it. Read through it. It's your book. Enjoy reading through it.
Yeah, and if you're a pantser, it is perfectly legitimate to do your world build and your story Bible afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But and if you're writing a series, though, remember you don't want to have the pop-up things, and you don't want to have the what's called broken world, and it's where you go from you're like, here are the rules for using magic in my world, and then you perform a Harry Potter, and by book 4, 5, and 6, you have just broken the rules like spaghetti going in a pot, and you're not following any of them anymore. Star Trek is notorious for like, these are the rules, and then they just break them every time.
And I believe, because I'm a big sci-fi fan, there are so many, even with the superheroes. My goodness, there are so many things where they're struggling in one episode to do something, or in one comic book to do something, and then a few episodes or series later, they do something. You're like, well, why didn't they just do that back then? That would have
my family.
Or if they're on a quest, and they're running for their lives from the dragon, and then it's like, oh wait, I can just, and then later they're fighting a lava golem, and they're like, oh, I'll just make us all fireproof. Well, why didn't you make us fireproof when the dragon was chasing us?
Yes.
My family always jokes that they made up Data as an android, because if you ever notice, he's their escape to all the different stuff. Like, he's like, oh, I can take this out of my arm and do this. I can do that. And yeah, it'll work. It's like he's the escape.
And if they need a reason to break the rules, Q is going to appear. Q or some Q-like being will appear.
Yes.
That's why that's in Relic of Time Wars. I have this character Daisy. They have these very set rules of using magic, because basically they're pulling their genetics are such that they can literally pull universal energy, but they can only use so much before they pass out or die. And like my favorite thing, and it happens maybe once a book in the later Relic of Time Wars books, where Daisy's like, I'm going to faint now. And then she does.
Yeah. So, yes.
So that's, if you're dancing and you're going to write a series, you need to have some awareness that in future books, if there are things you will need in future books, that when you're going back and you're doing your story Bible and you're doing your world building document to get it all down, that you might have to like just put a little dot, a little pin in there, so that it will be established for when you need it later.
Yes.
And and I don't know if this helps people, because I was watching one of the workshops earlier and someone was saying, like, if they do a lot of world building, they can't write the story because of, it feels like they already did it in their head, which I fully understand and fully get. But what I like to do is write the story and then go back when I'm doing like my final edit, my final read through. It's gone to the editor, it's gone to the proofers, it's gone to all the different people. I'm reading through just to make sure that everything's right. I like everything that's happened. And that's when I take all my notes and I put it in my story Bible, because at that point, I'm not like, if I'm going to change something, it's changing right there and then it's published. So there's nothing else left, for it. Whatever's in here is what is going to be it. And then that helps me, like, if something changed from when I started world building, or if I just put in like the name of a place but no information, then this gives me that information, and then I know for future reference what it is, and I know what is in the book of what it is, not so much just what I was like sitting around with the pen and a paper and I'm like, that sounds good.
Sky's question about writing a synopsis for each book in a series as part of the story Bibles. Yes. And here's the thing. Put that at the very beginning of your story Bible.
Yeah.
Can I share a document? I want to show them something.
Yes. And I was going to share mine, but I put mine kind of at the end. When I get to
Okay.
the synopsis is for, but make sure it's there. Either where you put it. I always tell everybody there's no wrong way to do it. Just make sure you do your best to get it done. All right, here we go.
Okay, this is the beginning of Relic of Time Wars, the revising. This is just the timeline going forwards and backwards through time. This is just the timeline, and then after this, every color is a different book, and because there are colors overlapping because they're jumping back and forth between time. Like you'll see here, this is where they're jumping. They've jumped back from this book up here. This is where the purple is where they've jumped, and they go. I mean, they literally go back and forth across thousands and thousands of years. So I have this. And then, okay, I'm going to pop that out. Okay, goodbye. And then the very next set of pages that I have are the synopsis and the blurbs for each book. And one of the things is the difficulty with writing time travel is because you have one set of characters going one way and one set of characters that is doing this. So as time moves, they're jumping back and forth, and I have to really struggle to keep that straight. Because, you can't, as I'm editing the last 4 books, I discovered that there was a battle that I had this character in on another planet. And then in the next section of the book, which is what is happening in the colonies, that character was in the colonies at the same time the battle was going on in the planet. So I had to pick one of those places and remove him. Because, they have interplanetary portals, but at this time, the portals had been shut down. So he could not have hopped back and forth and been in both places. And this is why it's important to this is why creating a story Bible, you create it before, but then you go back and I do too. I do a before and after story Bible. And it has helped me to find where I have messed up the story myself as the writer, because I'm like, oh, well, this character would be here because his girlfriend is here. She lives on this planet. But then he would be on this ship because he's the navigator of this ship. So I had to pick. And when you're giving yourself, I said I'm a planter at the beginning. So I'm going to have this battle in this chapter. This is what's going to happen in this battle. But then I just, this is the battle. This is the goal of the battle. And then I just free write the battle. I don't get doing the outline originally. And there are some places where I just have character dies, character revives, planet destroyed, and then I have to go back and I have to completely write that, just pantsing that whole event. Because I want that event to feel organic and spontaneous and to convey the emotions of, you're looking up at the sky and you're realizing that your planet is about to be stripped down to the rock and you have no way to escape this planet. So having those synopsises, what you want in each book as part of your story Bible, even for books you haven't written.
Yes.
It helps you stay focused into that, where I am going with this world.
Yeah. And like I said, those story synopses, just like the stories that you have just written, if you're a pantser and you wrote that first book first, that all becomes a part of your world's history. So it needs to go into the story Bible. And you don't have to put the whole first book in the story Bible. Just put in the parts that feel like they would be in the world's Wikipedia. Put in those parts. You can put in who saved the day. They'll become in that world's history. They'll become legend. They saved the day. Who was the bad guy? What places were destroyed during the battles, if you're writing a sci-fi or a fantasy or paranormal, something where that might happen, or dystopian. That all becomes part of that world's history. So if you are writing future stories and you have those future stories ideas, those synopses absolutely are part of the story Bible. Really quick, we're going to talk a little bit more about what goes into it, because Mama Maggie also had 30 questions every writer should consider to build into their world. And I just wanted to pop that up. And if there was anything in particular that you
I
wanted
had
to.
handwritten this out. On the other ones, I've done the 30 questions every author should ask their characters as a character interview. And then I created this 30 questions you should think about in a world build for my goddaughter because she hates world building. She dislikes world building so much. And so I'm like, well, here's you a place to start. And these are things that you don't have to think in detail about them. I mean, please, for the love of your sanity, do not be like me with my massive world building documents and 6 hours later getting up going, I can't bend my knees because I got lost in a rabbit hole. No. Just
Yes.
there's simple things. There's part of them that's on a sliding scale that you can pick, and it the very first pre-building questions is it an IRL Earth? Is it Earth adjacent with some supernatural elements like Tiffany writes, or is it like me, completely fantasy worlds, 100% from scratch, like Nia's worlds, completely from scratch worlds? And then it goes through questions on like what do they eat, where do they come from, where do and these are things you need to think about. How different are the plants? What are beneficial? What are toxic? What about the animals? What are passive? What are aggressive?
Are there any that are farmed?
Yeah, and it's like
Mhm.
and it moves down into the personality of the society on a sliding scale. Are they warmongers? Are they peacekeepers? What kind of magic and technology levels do you have? And I talk about religious organizations and political organizations and family organizations because these are real things. When I wrote the Book of Elo trilogy about the Elo people, they had an extremely strong caste system, which my human went into, and the thought of genetically adulterated clones as a labor force because their species was going extinct completely horrified her. And so I had to make sure that that her treatment of the Elo clones compared to literally everyone else's treatments of the clones always stayed completely diametrically opposed because to them they were just bio machines, and to Annie they were people. So, these are things you need to think about. What is your ruling hierarchy like? Are they conquerors? Are they by birthright? Are they elected? Do they thumb wrestle to see who gets to be president this year? Honestly, that would have been a debate I would have watched. But these are just very simple questions on how to just, get some world building basics out there so that that so this is how my people are going to act toward each other, this is how different groups are going to behave, because the interaction of, like, if you're in a small town, Tiffany and I both write small town contemporary.
I do as well.
That has a very specific dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
But when you bring in people, when you are writing fantasy, science fiction, sci-fi, the interaction between the belief systems is very profound. And sometimes it's like, what am I trying to say here? It's like you have a dog and a cat and a horse in a room, and they're all talking about who gets to eat the carrot on the table. Well, they're all going to have different arguments. They're all going to have different reasons why. And they're going to have different motivations. And so it's having these 30 questions to a world build allows you to just figure it out. And on the document allows you to like copy and save it. So you can go to it and look at it and print it out. There's some links on it to a world building website and a calendar making website, which, believe it or not, if you're writing a fantasy, sci-fi, or sci-fi world, being able to create your own calendar and actually just have like print it out is so nice. It is so much better than all of my old school drawing on paper things. I'm a child of the 90s. We didn't have computers.
Same. Oh my gosh.
I was in
I wish I
college
still
in the
had it on my
90s.
notebooks.
I should clarify that. I was a child of the 70s who was in college in the 90s when we were just starting to get computers to do things with, and we were still having to handwrite everything.
Yeah, exactly. Um, we're going to get ready to move on to resources. Where do you create your story Bibles, and where is it the same place that you write and do your world building, or do you keep everything more separated? So I have used several. I actually wrote down a few. There are some that I have not used. Like Campfire Pro, that's a good place that a lot of people really like to use that. I have Scrivener. I don't use it though. World Anvil I also have, and I love World Anvil, but it's a pretty steep learning curve, especially if you're coming in now, because they just keep adding on.
They keep adding things. The nice thing
it's
about World
amazing.
Anvil is when you're creating one is you can link things together. So you can and when you're changing stuff, you'll have drop menus that you can link them to other things. So you can build this immense world and drop the menus and share with them. But it can get overwhelming.
Yes.
If
It
you
is the one. It's the one I want to use for my sci-fi just because it has absolutely everything I need. The interactive parts of it where you can click on someone's name and then click where they're about their bio and go to see their whole family, their family tree. You can see their timeline. You can see what stories that they're in. It's pretty incredible, but it is something that you need to have time to do. If you're not already familiar with that platform, this is one of those things I recommend. Write your stories first, and then as you're building up your fan base, it's going to be something that your fans, your readers are going to love if you can put that together. If you can't do that, you can always do it on your own website. This, your fans, hopefully, I believe in all of you. I believe all of you are going to become famous, and your fans are going to want to see all of this stuff. So you can just do it on your website and have all of the maps and all of the cool things on your own website for people to go. You can have your wiki on your website where people can click on this character and find out their history and their bio. So all of this stuff that you're doing for your story Bible, it doesn't have to go to waste. It doesn't have to be, I did all of this story Bible to write a duology, and now what? Well, if you've got fans who love this duology, you can publish this stuff. You can make stickers. You can make the maps and, do so many fun things.
and snippets from your story Bibles, snippets on your worlds, on your kingdoms, on those things. They make great reader magnets, like little drops in your newsletters. That I have a friend who writes werewolf romances, and she has this one huge world, or she has two different huge worlds, but she will drop like a chapter that, it's like a chapter size fragment from each world of characters that are not in the main books. It's all the side characters. But she's been doing this for 5 years now, dropping these character chapter size little scenes from different characters like once a month. And tell you what, everybody's waiting on her newsletter. They're like, who's in the newsletter this week? Who do we get to see this week? And just, you're doing it now to help your world build. You're doing it now to create your book, but later on it's going to be worth something. I use pencil and paper for my world build, and then I put it into Microsoft Word. I haven't got into Notion. That's Tiffany. And she can tell you all about that.
I do. I use Notion. I use Notion quite a bit.
Are you ready to show it?
Oh, I can. Yeah. I also use, because I noticed a couple of people were saying Scrivener. I do use Scrivener quite a bit. It is one of my favorite things to use, especially for writing. But I do a lot of my world building in Notion. And this is just kind of an example of what it is that I do. One of the things that I love about it is because, like a wiki, it is very searchable. So if I am in the middle of a story and I just am like, oh, I said something about Thomas used to date Patricia and I can't remember what I said, I can search like just Thomas and Patricia and find it. So that's one of the reasons why I like the digital format a little bit better. But I have it linked where it will show you, like, I can put a whole note or synopsis or whatever it is that I want to put about the series as a whole, because I tend to write in series. I can download, I have a whole thing, whether it's my current series, upcoming, if it's drafting, if it's published. And then I also have whether it's romance, romantic suspense, paranormal, whatever. And then I link it to whatever books are in the series. And each one of these are their own page that has the synopsis of what each story is, as well as what characters are in it and everything that deals with that one. I also have like a task list, and then this is where I keep, say, like my notes and my research, the history and culture of it, any graphics that I want to use for publicity or anything like that. And then also I can keep like my additional information if anything else comes up, or series numbers, like how it's selling, who's liking it, what are the big things about it. And then I have all of my characters in here, as well as all of my locations. And I love because I can put pictures in it and make it all pretty. So it kind of looks like a world map to me. And then my publishing calendar. So I can keep everything in here. And then each one of, say, like my characters, I have, I can put their nickname, their age, ethnicity, gender, eye color, hair, occupation, what series they're in, what story they're the main couple of, who they're in a relationship with, who their parents are, who their children are. And then I have like just a character traits, and then additional notes that I can have in there. And I do the same, maybe not quite as intense, but for like my locations, like I can divide it up by, if it pops up, I have like the different things like restaurants or businesses or homes or all the different stuff. And it is a learning curve to figure out. It does take a bit to build all of this because it is kind of blank when you first start. And so I did do all of this on my own, but now I can just, all I have to do is replicate it. So whenever I have a new series or a new Bible that I need to put all of my information in, then I just like copy that, put all the stuff in there, and then we're good. And I can just keep going.
And can you do all of this in Notion for free, or do you have to have the paid Notion?
I do not have the paid account, so you could do all of it for free. I have not yet gotten there where I've gotten to the point where I have to pay yet. I came close one time. Something popped up that I had to pay, and I was like, oh, they got me after all this time. And then I realized what I did and backed out of it, and then I didn't have to pay. I was like, okay, great. So, yes.
I will say that the one resource that I'm learning to love, I think everybody who, if you've been on streams with me, I love Canva, and I am finding the more that Canva does, I'm actually thinking about trying to see, can I hold and do my complete story just in Canva, because Canva is really giving a lot. And I'm just like, I wonder, because it's where I source my images, and I do source my images from Canva just because if I want to use something for promo, I know I've got that paid Canva, so I don't have to worry about, oh no, where did I get this image? Did I get it off of Pinterest? Oh no, I can't, should I use it? Can I use it? You know what I mean? So Canva is just, especially if you have the Canva Pro, again, you got to pay for that one. I am not sponsored, but for me, that is the one thing that I pay for that is 100% worth every penny that I pay for it, because I use it for so much, especially social media, YouTube. I use it for so many things. But go ahead.
I recently started using, and I don't know if this is a new app that Apple added. It's called Freeform, and it's like a continuous whiteboard. And I have been using that to brainstorm some of my towns, some of my series, some of like my world building, because I try to link all of my stories to other stories and other characters and stuff like that. And so it's been kind of fun because you can just like scribble and erase and paste and do all the stuff, and it's just wonderful.
Another free one that you guys can use, it's Google Docs. And the good thing about Google Docs is that it goes everywhere with you. One of the things that has been the struggle for me with using other apps is that no matter where I am, if I feel like writing something, I can pull up my Google Docs on my phone, on my iPad. If I'm out and I did not bring my iPad and I can only use my phone, I can add it to my document and not worry about, oh, did I upload that? Is it saved or is it not saved? It's there. I can start wherever I left off without having to worry about, did I leave something, did I forget something? Do I have the most recent? And I do a lot of world building in Google Docs, and I just create the folders. And I have this one's for a project that's in the future, but I can put all of my images in here. I have book 1, book 2. I have all my templates like Tiffany does. I make the templates ahead of time. Then I can just copy and paste and I can put them in. And then I do this for my characters. I do this for my world. I can fill out the character bios and then write a synopsis about the character in general, or what the synopsis is for the character in any particular story. With my world Bible, same thing. You can do this absolutely anywhere. You don't have to do this in Google Docs. Google Docs is just a free option. You can do this in Scrivener, Campfire
You can do
Pro.
it in Word. You can do it
in Word, yeah.
Anything. You don't have to buy a very expensive program. If that's not where you're at financially, do not worry about it. That is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you have a place that you can reference. And I can reference my locations. I can reference people in the town, characters, all of it's here. You just click on where you need to go. You have that information down there and you're good to go. So it's less important. I know a lot of people are like, you must have this program and you mustn't. You must do your best to get your story down the best you can. And that's the only thing you need to do.
Yes.
Do your best to get your story down.
And there's so many. I know people who use like Airtable. I know people who use Pinterest. I know people who use like you said, a sheet of paper and a pen, a notebook. You can do so many different ways. I've used Trello as well.
Reedsy is another one.
Reedsy is another one as well. So yeah.
And for those, if you don't have the ability to type, the voice to texting.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I know that AI is the big boogeyman right now, but it's literally made voice to texting so much more than it used to be. It took weeks or even months to train the voice recognition software, and now just about anyone in an hour, it can learn your voice, it can learn your accent, and it can start just putting your words down. So, and don't be afraid of trying to use these tools. And, I know it seems like when you've got the book done and you're like, okay, the book is done, I've written it, blah, blah, I don't want to go back and do this. You don't have to go back and write a story Bible or write a world build for every book. If you're just doing a single standalone book, maybe go back afterwards to just lightly try to catch if you've made any mistakes. Like if somebody starts using magic before they're of age to start using magic or something, unless that's part of your plot. But the thing is story Bibles, world building, these are tools to help you as a writer. These are tools to make sure that your story can be the best story that it can be. And doing it before the fact, doing it after the fact, it helps you both ways. And actually having two different ones lets me go back and compare and see where I went off the rails, where I need to, wrestle the story back into track so that I can finish the series.
And one of the things I would say is we go back and we edit anyway. and we have to proof it. We have to edit it. We have to format it.
Mhm.
We're looking at that story a lot after we get done. So, like if you look at it as like just adding to your story Bible or taking notes and making sure that you have all the information that you need, going forward as part of that, then it doesn't feel like it's an extra step that you are adding into like the process of publishing. And to the point, I believe someone was asking about like kind of the talk to speech that are for like if you're having vision problems or vision impairments, like with what Mama Maggie was saying, even if you don't have the tools to do it on your computer, Notion has an app. Google Docs has an app. You can easily use your phone. Microsoft Word has an app. You can use your phone. You can use your tablet. These are places that automatically have, like some type of voice listening or voice to text in there,
Yeah.
and you could easily do that. And
As well as reading your stories back to you. As well as reading your stories back to you. That's
Absolutely.
one of the ways I am dyslexic, and I will miss things on my own stories. If I'm trying to edit on my own stories, I will miss things. One of the things I love to do is have my own story read back to me. I can catch things. I can pick up things like, oh, that needs to go in my story Bible. It's a good time to do that, and it gives you a chance to kind of hear how your story it sounds. Even though even with an AI voice that's not really great, sometimes it really helps you pick up errors when they don't pronounce something right. It makes you go, huh? Oh, okay. It's just an extra way to make you check.
They use the wrong verb tense, and you're like,
whoa, did I write that or did they do that?
Well,
or they just completely butcher one of your characters' names, and you're like, that's not that. No.
Or you realize that it's talking, and you're like, I've used that word like 5 times in like 4 sentences.
Or I just started every paragraph with that person's name. Yikes.
Yeah.
So
catch those things.
I start with a physical handwritten copy. I convert it to digital, and Huntsman of Anamos, the prequel to the prequel quartet, world building. You can if you're on Amazon, you can set yourself up a book, basically a fake book page to publish a book. It's like $5 to print out your world build. And you can't put pictures in it, but you can print out your world build for like $5 so that you have a printed copy. If you go to a copy shop, you're looking at $30 to $50.
Yeah,
to have it bound
easily. Yeah.
So, I know everyone sees the Overlord A is this horrible, terrible thing, but as an author on a budget,
use it if you need it. Hey.
Just and you don't have to, and that it's just it's literally like test book blank or whatever you want to title it, and then you change the title when you print it out, and you change this. You can change the subtitle on the font when you print it out, and then you'll get the printout, and it that way you have a tactile copy besides your digital copies and your backups. I'm a big advocate of having backups because I had a computer crash and eat 3 months worth of writing, and my terabyte drive had a bad sector, so none of my backups were saved they were just little X's on pages for like 3 months worth of writing. So I'm a very big advocate of back up your writing every week, every month, do a whole backup, put it aside somewhere else, because I have literally lost a scene that I was sure that I wrote, which with my brain damage from my stroke, it's a struggle for me to remember if I wrote something or not, but I was sure I wrote this scene, and I ended up going back and I found it actually in a Google Docs that I had sent to myself like 2.5 years ago. But somehow it got deleted from the main document of the story, and I was like, I know I wrote this. I know it's there. It's supposed to be right here. And so, back up. Having a handwritten copy is great. Having a digital copy is great. Creating a print copy for yourself, do that. No one's ever going to see it but you. Who knows? Maybe your grandkids can sell it, at Sotheby's auction. Here's the original world build for. Imagine if we had Tolkien's original world build. How much would that be worth?
Oh my gosh. Canva does everything. Yes, Canva is fantastic. All right, we have a few more minutes. We're going to try and get through as many of these questions as we can. Where did I start? Stop off at. Oh, and why did I click off of it? Okay. How much time do you dedicate to world building compared to writing? I personally, I dedicate a lot of time, but when I'm on a crunch, I will put myself on a time limit. Like I will give myself, you get an hour to world build today. Usually I have enough of the story. I can go ahead and write, and anything that I write in my book that I haven't put into my world building, I know next day or my next writing session, I highlight. I love how Mama Maggie had everything color coded. I color code and highlight. I'm like, I'm writing this now. This needs to go in my world building. I will underline it, highlight it, put it in a different color. That way on my next day session, I can go add that in during my world building time. Because if I don't limit myself in time, I will just literally, I would almost rather just keep world building and creating the world than actually writing the story.
World building is a rabbit hole that you will fall down, and you're climbing out 6 hours later. You can't walk because your butt's numb and you need to pee. So yeah, you get 30. If I have something come up and I need it, like in the story that I'm writing, or if I'm editing and I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right, I get a 30-minute window. If I can't find it in 30 minutes, if I can't satisfactorily fix it in my brain, it's out.
All right, for my pantsers, do you ask specific questions before you start the scene, before you get writing work, or how do you do that? Do you find it counterintuitive?
I don't know if I ask myself specific questions like what needs to happen here, but I do, like, I kind of know where the scene needs to go in order to stay in the flow of the story. So it's not so much that I'm like sitting down and I'm like, okay, what do these characters need to accomplish? What needs to happen? Who needs to have some emotional breakthrough or something like that? But I am like, I know the next scene is when they get together, or I know the next scene is like when this happens, or I'm so many words in, I know we got to kiss soon or something. And so like it just kind of flows that way, and more so knowing where it needs to end than necessarily what needs to happen in that series.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, I'm going to try and get to as many of these. I will let you guys know. Mama Maggie streams. Do you stream regularly right now?
They've got me on a new migraine medicine. I'm hoping to get back to 5 a.m. Writers Club on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Mm-hmm. It's 7 o'clock your time.
That still sounds early.
And Tiffany and I do a Small Town World. It's a world building podcast. So if we don't get to your question, feel free to join us on our live stream. We have one coming up this month. We do one a month, so we have one coming up for early in July. We do that on a Saturday.
First Saturday of the month.
Yeah. So you can check that out if we don't get to your question. This one's, is it easier to create an animal plant from scratch or take real plants and animals and rename them? One of the things that, if I'm doing a sci-fi, those are usually where I'm really completely taking a new animal. I will liken it to, because usually there's a human somewhere. So I can liken it to, I can say it's like a purple bunny with beaver teeth than a, otter tail. You know what I mean? And people will know what it's like because I get to describe it through my human character's eyes, maybe a human who is familiar with earth animals. And that's a quick way to kind of familiarize the reader with what exactly are we looking at. Is it like a buffalo or something like that? Anybody else got a quick tick? Because we got to go.
I know. I was just looking at Melissa Adams' question. Is there something that you would like in it that you like in another series? Can you mention it as a reference? That is a very fine line that you need to do, because like you do not want to mention anything from the Overlord D.
There are other series where you can't mention their thing.
There are
I
things
would
from
tread
other creative
Star Wars
creators
has
that you
some things. I
can't.
think Star Trek has some things. There are things
Mhm.
that you absolutely can't. I would tread very carefully if I were you.
Exception to that rule is it your series? Because
Yes,
if
if it's
you're
your series,
referencing something that
100%.
you like you have a firefighter series and now you're in like a policeman series and you want to reference the firefighter series, absolutely go wild. But yeah, no, if you're trying to reference like something on television or some other book series that belongs to someone else or a TV series or something
If
like
they have
that,
a trademark,
There's a
I'd probably
scene. There's a scene in Relic of Time Wars where in Swords of Etheria where they're joking about lightsabers, and I cannot say lightsaber.
yeah.
They just
Yeah.
say, "Oh, that ridiculous plasma sword. The magnetics would kill you." Yeah.
But there's other things that you can reference. You can say she went to Walmart. You know, what I mean? There's things that it's not going to be a problem, and there's other things that it's going to be a no. So,
I referenced a Jack Nicholson movie, but I referenced it in sense of, oh, that mystery movie with Jack Nicholson where where the nurse goes crazy.
Yeah.
All right, guys,
So,
we gotta go.
It's 8:00. Thank you all so much.
Nia and I will be back tomorrow on my channel for the presentation where we are taking some of what you just saw in her world building and we're transporting it to Notion. So be sure to check that out.
Yes, and we'll be back for a romance writers panel with Deidre Anderson. So lots more. You guys have a great time at the conference. I will see you guys in the chats. And it's been really a lot of fun. We could talk world building all day, but we got to go. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.